Hello and welcome to the Cellar Door. I'm George and today I'm at Taltarni Vineyards in the Pyrenees. No, I haven't just popped over to France. I'm in the Pyrenees in Western Victoria and I'm going to try Victoria's best wine. Officially. Let's go. A few hours north of Melbourne, the Pyrenees are a relatively hidden gem amongst Victoria's food and wine regions, especially for lovers of Shiraz and Cabernet. Vineyards lay nestled at the bottom of hills, free from crowds and full of trails and lookouts to explore. Today I'm visiting Taltarni Estate, home to many world-class, award-winning wines, to find out more about their deep connection to the land and how their wines reflect the characteristics of this unique region. First, I'm meeting Chief Winemaker Robert at the Cellar Door. So I was quite excited to try your best wine in Victoria, the Premier's Award that you won.
Yes.
But everyone bought it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any in stock, which is it's probably a good sign
Yeah,
for the wine.
probably good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter, there are plenty of others. We have this lovely rosé.
Yeah, so that's won the Champagne Sparkling Wine World Championships Best Rosé. So it's a global award, which is fantastic for us.
I'll take that. Shall we open it?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, how long have you been Chief Winemaker here?
I think I started early 2013 as chief winemaker of Taltarni. A fair trek through the wine landscape, which has been great. It's a fantastic opportunity for me, and the people here are lovely, and gives you an opportunity to work with some of the best fruit in Australia.
Yeah, and make the best wine in Australia.
Well, hopefully, yeah.
Very nicely done.
You should open as many bottles as I have.
I don't know.
Generally, you get it right.
I reckon I'd be okay.
You never want to pop it.
No.
No. Keep as much fizz as you can in the bottle.
I can smell that ripe fruit from here.
Yeah. So this is a blend of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier. So the three traditional sparkling varietals of Champagne, and they offer great acidity and really nice mouthfeel and good length within the wine. And we blush it. Yeah, we blush it with a little bit of Pinot Noir, still Pinot Noir from the current vintage, and that gives it its nice salmon hue, as you can see. So
yeah, it's gorgeous. We
don't look for a too pink colour, but it's more about a salmony, orange blossom sort of colour. And it adds really nice, fresh aromatics. So you get strawberries and cream, and a little bit of orange blossom, with rose petal, and it's really nice.
Yes, it is. Oh, that's so good. This was one of the first proper bubbles that I ever drank, actually.
Oh, it's great. You're coming back to where you began your journey. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, I love this rosé. It's really good, sort of picnic style, sparkling, really easy drinking, and it shows all the great hallmarks of fantastic sparkling.
Yeah, it does indeed. While we're on the subject of sparklings, let's head into the Chardonnay vineyard to have a chat with Bud, the managing viticulturalist. Hello, Bud.
Hi, how you going?
I'm great.
Yep. I came here 6.5 years ago. I had obviously a background in viticulture with corporates and private vineyards. When I first got here, I wanted to find more out about the area, with the Indigenous people. Wanted to find out what their thoughts were and what the climate was and how the soils, how they treated them. And so from there, I started to benchmark the vineyard, how much water, how many tonnes we should be picking off it. And then from there, I set a program in place that these vines, they've been changed over from hand cane prune to what we call spur prune. So every year. So
does that make it more sustainable?
Yeah, the cost effective. Yeah. And so what we do, we send a machine through first, and they'll just cut them back to about there, and then we'll get contractors pruners come in, and then we'll cut them back to around about a 2-bud spur. So we keep it tight every year. We don't want to have too many tons. We only want to grow this at about 8 and 9 tonne to the hectare up here on these older vines and look after them for the long term.
So that'll give you a more concentrated flavour in the berry.
Yes.
So when did the vines first get planted?
These planting here were planted in the 80s. Overall, plantings for Chardonnay on site is 23 hectares. And all predominantly that goes into all the sparklings.
Yeah, which Taltarni is quite renowned
Yeah, renowned for its cool climate. Yeah.
And how long ago did the first vines get planted here?
The very first vine was back in 1969. The owners of this come from the Bordeaux region over in France, and they wanted a vineyard similar in Australia, and they sent a fellow out to have a look around, and he come to this Pyrenees region, and he was, what I've heard, he drove by, had a look and looked at how the topography of the land here is, up on the ridge, and then the soils he looked at, and then one night drove around and put his arm out the window and felt the coolness of the air and thought this would be a great area to grow grapes because it's warmer in the day, not overly hot, and at night it cools down, which is good.
A little slice of Bordeaux, 10,000 miles away. Back at the winery, it's vintage season, so winemaker Tim and his team are in full swing processing the harvested grapes. So it's a perfect time to peek behind the curtain. These whole bunches, meaning the grapes and the stems, are being added to the de-stemmed grape juice in the fermenter tanks. So what's going on here?
This is our open-top fermenter room. This is where we ferment all of our red wines.
You tipped some whole grapes into this little vat here, but then you put some juice on top?
Yeah, some more crushed fruit on top. So we kind of call that a sandwich. So I put a little bit of crushed fruit on the bottom. A grape sandwich. So then we put about a bin or so, half a tonne of whole bunch in. That goes through a different kind of fermentation, so you get these kind of stalky bubblegum characters come out in the wine. So that's where we can get a little bit more experimental with what we do. And it's not just crushing fruit sitting in the tank. We can play around a little bit. And some people like to put it on the bottom of the tank. Some people like to put it in the middle like I did. Some people like to sit it on top. It just depends on what floats your boat, really.
While most red wines are made from de-stemmed grapes, adding whole bunches to fermentation tanks is a handy stylistic tool for adjusting characteristics of the wine.
So Shiraz Viognier, we might do a little bit of whole bunch on the bottom, crush some fruit, and then sit the Viognier on top. You can see just around the corner here, we've got Lucy who is pumping over. We like to circulate the wines from the base over the top to wet the cap. That aids in extraction of colour, anthocyanin and structure, and gives the yeast a little bit of air as well, because they do like to breathe. So
it sounds delicious.
It smells delicious too.
Yeah.
And we're blessed with a lot of different size tanks too, so we can get a bit experimental with what we do. We can do larger format or we can do smaller format.
And does each specific vat turn into a specific wine?
Yes. So we'll put anything from Merlot, Cabernet Shiraz, Pinot Noir through these. After 10 to 14 days of fermentation, they're pressed off and pressed to tank. We then put them to oak to go through secondary fermentation and age in barrel for anywhere from 10 to 22 months.
And then do you get to sit and sample the wines after you?
Of course. I mean, that's part of the journey. I mean, you wouldn't be learning, wouldn't be doing it if you couldn't do that.
Yeah, you're in it for the purpose.
That's right. Each person has a different way of doing things, and whether or not it's the right way or wrong way is to be determined. But it's all subjective, and we can experiment and keep playing with things, and that's half the fun of what we do.
Speaking of fun, should we go have a look at your big crushing, whirring material, the crush pad?
The crush pad.
The crush pad.
Let's do it.
After the break, it's crushing time. See you soon. It's all go here at Taltarni, and it's time to see the first crucial step once the grapes come back from the vineyard. It may seem obvious, but crushing and de-stemming are some of the most important steps of the winemaking process. Not merely to create juice, but to get the sugars and yeasts intermingling by breaking the grape's skin. Ouch! Before crusher de-stemmers were invented in the 20th century, almost all red wines were fermented with their stalks. So let's take a look at this modern marvel. So is this the crush pad?
Oh, so this is part of the crush pad. We've got upstairs, we tip our grapes into the vibrating hopper. It'll shake them down, slowly sorting them out.
The grape hopper feeds the grapes through at a constant speed. It's more than a little mesmerising, to be honest. It's not just a clever name. The grapes then pass through the crusher destemmer to be, well, crushed and destemmed.
This is like a giant colander with batons in the middle. So the grapes and the bunches travel through this. It beats the grapes out through the colander and spits out the stalks at the end.
Just the stalks?
Yep.
Very clever. I'm sure they'd have appreciated one of these back in the old days.
What falls down to the muster pump down here is just pure grape.
Right.
And juice.
That goes...
And then we pump that up into our open top fermenter room.
all the way...
Up through the manifolds up there, and we've got a nice thick hose up the top that we just put into each tank as we want to fill it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And what is this giant bathtub full of wine?
This is
that for at the end of the day when you need to just unwind?
Exactly. This is our smaller press. We use this to press off the grapes once fermentation is complete.
So you take them out of the...
That's right. So all of the grapes will be pumped into the tank for 7 to 10 days worth of fermentation. That's where the extraction of colour and anthocyanins, structure and tannin come from. Once that's done, we drain the tank to another tank, and we then, some lucky cellar hand gets to jump in and dig out the skins into these picking bins, which then get tipped into the press, and we press them off, and that is the wares. So what we first take is called the free run, so that'll be what you're tasting as fermentation's happening, but this is very, very tannic, very phenolic. It's all of the goodness pushed out of the skins.
And so you will blend that back into the...
That's right. In most cases, yes. Yes.
All right. Do you ever taste it straight from the...
All the time.
Do you? How's the serenity?
There's another step I'm told I must see. The big splash, which gives the machine a good old-fashioned rinse. The machine's clean, the stems are off, and I think I've done my time outside, so it's time to follow the grapes to their next stop, the barrel hall. Tim's graciously offered to climb up and sneak me a barrel taste of an old Vine Shiraz. Sometimes all you have to do is ask.
I am thrilled to be here holding a Taltarni Old Vine Shiraz.
Old Vine Shiraz 2020, yes.
That you very kindly got down from a great height.
Geistily. This is 2020 from a relatively new barrel, 1-year-old wood. We use exclusively French oak.
So that's all part of your job as winemaker to choose the best barrel and...
Yeah, the barrel to best suit the wine. You've got Cabernets that are quite tannic, so they're going to take a slightly bolder barrel, a slightly bolder toast, where you've got Shiraz as much more juby, kind of lifted red fruit, so you might want something a little bit more subtle that's going to really complement the wine as opposed to dominate the wine. The old vines, both Cabernet and Shiraz, are some of these we planted early 70s.
Right, so sort of when it was established?
Yes, they were planted out initially, and then later it came the Chardonnay Pinot for the sparkling side of what we do as well. Yeah.
And what led you to Taltarni?
A young family brought me out west. We decided we wanted to get out of the big smoke and found a nice little middle ground in Ballarat, and have been here ever since and absolutely love it. Also the opportunity to work with really great fruit. It's quite an interesting region, understated region as well, the Pyrenees. I think there's a lot out here that really should be promoted more.
Should we have a little try of
Please.
the 2020?
2020, yes. So relatively good year. The yields were quite low.
Which makes for a more concentrated
fruit, concentrated aromas. This has been in a 1-year-old barrel, so there's quite a little bit of oak here. But yeah, lots of red fruit, stalkiness, cedar, toast, tar. And keeping the yields quite low means that you get that concentration of fruit, that really good palate weight, and that long length.
Yeah. The fruit kind of sits a little bit further back, doesn't it?
It does, it does. And carries right across the palate, and it leaves quite a nice lingering finish.
Yeah.
And using some of the more refined French oak means that fruit isn't being overpowered by pure smoke or pure wood.
No, that's delicious.
Thank you.
Tim, thank you so much for sharing this and your story with us.
More than welcome.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Back at the cellar door, it's time for more of the finished product.
So this is our 2020 Grenache Shiraz Mourvedre. This is a recent planting. So we only planted this in 2016. So it's only really started to produce for us over the last couple of years. But really, it is a fantastic variety for this region. And Grenache, as you know, has really had a resurgence in drinkability and awareness within the community. So it's fantastic to be able to make this style. I mean, I've always liked GSM as my favourite drink.
Yeah, it is
I'm lucky.
a good combo.
And this is very much a Rhone style. It's got nice fruit forwardness, nice balance, but also that savoury character and really good tannin and structural components as well. So.
Yum.
The southern French Rhone character is enhanced by the Mourvèdre, a darkly coloured, meaty, rustic, full-bodied red variety.
And so a touch of Mourvèdre.
Yes, so it's approximately 60% Grenache, 30% Shiraz, and the remainder is Mourvèdre. And the Mourvèdre is fantastic in this region. It adds really lovely, supple sort of spice characters, and the Shiraz gives really nice textural components, and the Grenache is obviously that beautiful red fruit.
Fruit, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's to blending and vintage, which we're blessed to be listening to.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of background noise going on here at the moment, so it's mainly tractors and bins getting tipped into the crusher. So it's
the sound of future wine.
Yes, the sound of stress and enjoyment.
I'll drink to that.
So this wine was one of the wines that was in the taste-off for last year's Jimmy Watson at the Melbourne Wine Show, which is fantastic for us. It's a great accolade, and we $30 or thereabouts a bottle.
Yeah, right.
It's great.
It's so yummy.
Yeah, really soft, easy drinking, and I think that's what the appeal is with Grenache and Grenache blends, is that it's just easy drinking, easy go-to. People are comfortable around it. It's not too complex. It doesn't overpower the situation.
After the break, I'll be looking at and tasting the grapes from Taltarni's oldest vines, Cabernet Sauvignon. See you soon. I'm back in the vineyard with Bud, this time in the Reds, to learn how they look after some of their oldest vines.
So this is the oldest?
Oldest block on the vineyard. This is Cab Sab. This was planted in 1969, along with a small block of Moonambel and Pinot down the front.
So this is a
very
53-year-old
vines. Yep. And these here, you can see how old and gnarly they are, but we just got to look after them, and we ensure that we keep the fruit level down around 8 tonne per hectare. If we're growing reserve or Patron, we'll come through and bunch thin it out to about 1 tonne per hectare.
Oh right, that's a pretty huge difference.
Yeah, huge difference. It is machine prune, but we also come back with the pruners once again and then cut it real short. We'll have a nice tight box hedge, and then we'll just wait until after berry set and see what the fruit's like, and then when it comes veraison, we just see how much fruit we've got to take off. But
so veraison's when it starts to ripen?
Yes.
So do you go through and just kind of get rid of the...
Yep, we'll go through and cut, could be 7 or 8 tonne, on there, and we'll cut back to 1, so that a bit of fruit comes off.
And what do you do with the fruit that you've cut off?
Just put it back on, leave it back on the ground. Yeah, we don't.
As a like a
that'll just
mulch or fertiliser?
Yeah, just drop mulch into the ground, and it reduces our irrigation, keeps some moisture in, and that's what we want to be looking going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just make sure the undervine is keep it healthy, and the mid rows we'll look at probably different grasses there in the years to come. What we will plant just to help keep the moisture in.
Grass management is equally important in maintaining the health of these old vines.
We'll look at the different soils areas and different grasses that we'll think will grow what's suited to the block. So we want to keep the ground floor cool at the same time. We want to keep that cool underneath if all of your feeder roots are not very far under the ground. With our water, we've got a new automatic irrigation system here now. It's hooked up to the phones.
To the phones?
Yeah.
Talk about cutting edge. Taltarni has also established several secure and sheltered environments for insects, otherwise known as insect hotels.
It's corridor trees. That's all it is.
Oh, it's not a little tiny building?
No, it'll be a corridor tree.
Established in 2007, these insectariums provide a pollen and nectar source for a range of insects such as wasps, beetles and brown lacewings. That's a kind of moth.
They'll feed on the nectar, then they'll fly out into the vineyard and do their job.
Look, but I'm slightly disappointed.
No, you won't see. a building whatsoever. No, we had corridors. Yeah, there's 4 or 5 corridors here that we have.
This diverse ecosystem of insects helps reduce the need for chemicals and other controls in the vineyards against pests. Insects like bees come into the vineyard and help control any unwanted pests. Back at the cellar door, it's time to taste the Cabernet Sauvignon in action.
This is our old vine Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yum.
So, fantastic concentration, really small berries, really great colour. We get a lot of phenolics and a lot of textural components coming through from our Cabernet.
Phenolics, the
tannin.
smell? Oh, the tannin.
Tannin.
Ah.
Yeah, so generally when you've got small berries, thick skin, you get a lot of skin tannin coming through. You've had tea sometimes when it's a bit overpowering in your mouth. That's tannin, the effect of tannin. So it's lovely to have with good food, red meat. That's why I always say Cabernet is fantastic with red meat. A little bit of fat cuts through the tannin and phenolics and really adds to the style.
So these vines were planted when Taltarni was first established?
Yes, yeah. So these are the initial plantings. Cabernet being the first was because basically the owners, the Gillette family, wanted to find the New World Bordeaux.
Because they're French.
Yeah, French background. They've got ties to the Gustia wine merchant family. So they wanted to come out here and find a New World Cabernet that could really match it with the Old World. And I think we've been able to do that. It's great. So they planted a lot of Bordeaux clones, and then we moved into sparkling, which moved into Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and of course Shiraz, which has been a hallmark of Taltarni over the years.
Yeah.
So this is our 2017. It won Best Cabernet at the Cool Climate International Wine Show.
Yep.
So 2017 was a lovely year, similar to this year actually. It was a cool year with really good rainfall, lovely varietal, cool climate complex, aromatics coming through, and it's a softer style, easy drinking. And as we're going into the cooler months of the year, it's probably a perfect go-to.
It's absolutely delicious. It's got that gentle savouriness to
Yes, yeah. There's some dark red fruit on the nose, nice oak sitting in the background. We don't want to overpower things with oak here. It's more a representation of the vineyard and the varietal.
And last, but certainly not least, something suitably special to finish off my stay.
So this is our Patron. This is our new wine.
It's a gorgeous label.
Yes, basically we wanted to create a wine that was the best representation of our past and how we're moving forward, and also the terroir of the vineyard. So what we did was we created our own techniques with fermentation, and we minimised the amount of crop. So this is all 1 tonne per acre, which is very low. So you get really, really intense fruit characters, really, high quality textural components coming through on the wine, aromatics as well. So what we do with this wine is, this is 50% Shiraz, 50% Cabernet. We pick the Shiraz at its optimum ripeness by hand, and then we send it to cold store for 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, while the Cabernet ripens.
Right.
And then we pick the Cabernet, and then we bring the Shiraz back, and we ferment them together. So this is co-fermented Shiraz and Cabernet, which I don't think is being done really anywhere in Australia.
Yeah.
Might be, but this is our way of showing the varietals that work really well within Taltarni, how they work together at their peak. 16 was a much warmer year, and 17 is a cooler year.
So is it a more refined sort
Yes, yeah. I think you'll see more savoury notes in here, and I'll just try not to butcher the bottle. They're a nightmare to get open sometimes.
They look so good.
They do.
So the Cabernet in this comes from the same block as your...
Yes. So this is it's both the old vines. It's the best selection of fruit from the vineyard. We crop thin and we make the wine accordingly to best represent. We only generally make 150 dozen a year of this, so it's a really small make. 50% new oak, so it gets a lot. You'll see this is very, very different style.
Yeah.
Very complex, dark.
Yeah.
Brooding fruit. A little bit of meaty character.
Brooding fruit. The meatiness.
Meatiness coming through from the oak as well. But I think this wine has so much further to go. It's very young. It's just a pup.
Sure. It's definitely got more fruit, like at that
Yeah,
start
at the front of the palate delivers a lot more weight. It's got a really nice textural component to it, and it's quite a supple wine, so soft and silky.
Extremely supple.
Yeah, so I mean that's what you aim. You aim for, once people have their first taste, then they're sort of, I don't want to say addicted, but they really want to go back for the second and get an idea of what the wine's delivering and consistency within that. So
I certainly do, and I'm going to.
It's good. You know, it gets 12 to 18 months in bottle to be able to do that. So you don't see too many older wines like this out in the marketplace. A lot of people are looking for current vintage, you know, almost with reds. They're looking to be drinking much more recent wines, which is, it's lovely to be able to drink some older styles.
Yeah.
Wines with a bit of age to them. Now, I did my research on what the region has to offer, and you can see the surrounds, the quality of fruit that we've got to deal with, but also, you know, the variety that can be made here. A lot of regions are destined to be producing Shiraz or Semillon or Riesling or Pinot, whereas this is a region that can produce anything, which is so much fun to play with as a winemaker. You can make any different style you like.
Yeah. Well, cheers to that.
Yeah,
Thanks,
cheers.
Robert.
Thank you.
Well, gosh, it's been a very tough day today, and I've earned this little sit down. Robert did say this was a picnic rosé after all. Thanks for joining me at Taltarni Vineyards, and until next time, this is the Cellar Door. Cheers.